Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of F1-derland, the podcast, or F1-derland. Kelly, show the people who we are here.
Sure.
That's all of us. This podcast came to light because the three of us are all annoying F1 fans since Drive to Survive came out. So part of the new age, the new era of F1 fans. Yeah. So this podcast came to be because all three of us are texting all the time. We're all sharing all the beautiful memes that you on the internet are putting out there for us to consume about one of the world's best sports, Formula One. My name is Tim. I am an F1 fan. Since about 2022, I was dying of COVID and discovered Drive to Survive and instantly fell in love with all the drivers. My personal favorite, Danny Ricciardo.
Classic.
Oh,
May he
Danny.
rest in peace.
But he's coming back.
Mon ami. Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Hot take. Too
I don't
early.
know. Will
for hot
Buxton.
takes.
Will Buxton's at IndyCar. Prime real estate available.
We'll get into that.
for
Don't you worry. Don't
Danny
you
Ricciardo.
worry.
And to my right is
I'm Kelly. I am a washed up athlete post college, just like living my best life through other sports. And that's, I think, where F1 comes in for me. I can't tell totally the difference in driving. So I like characters like Valtteri Bottas.
And he has the best merge.
yeah.
Yes.
Like that
merch,
hat
best
that you have.
mullet.
Yes. But I'm excited for Lewis this year.
Yeah. Current driver, I support Lewis Hamilton and also Carlos Sainz because honestly, like,
Daddy Signs. How could I
Daddy.
even?
yeah.
Daddy. My name is Jake. I've been an F1 fan probably later than you have. I started watching the first Grand Prix I watched this year was Miami, which I'm
Interesting. And didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Indianapolis, so I grew up with IndyCar. I've gone to the 500 a bunch of times, and that was kind of my world. And I went and I ran a race that you actually get to run around the Indianapolis.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Motor Speedway. And that weekend was Miami, and I was like, oh, I want to watch this, and just was like, oh, this is really, really cool. And so then I binged Drive to Survive. So Danny was my
Clear.
obviously.
Enchante, if you're looking for a podcast to sponsor that will
Yeah.
shamelessly plug yours.
Yeah. But
That's right.
my boy is Lando.
Yeah. That
Through and through.
same race, Jake met his husband on TV.
And it was his first win. So, but I will say I do love Lando, but I love McLaren. Like so this car over here, I told you I was into IndyCar. Someone gave this to me when I was in like 6th grade, and I brought it to school for like show and tell or something. And I told everyone it was an IndyCar, and all of these like nerdy little
Freaking idiot.
they were like jocks. I was the nerd. They're like, no, that's an F1 car. And I was like, no, it's an Indy car. And they're like, no, it's an F1 car.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it's a McLaren. So my McLaren roots go back
That's deep.
kind of deep.
Yeah. And here I thought it was superficial.
I mean,
Let's be honest. Most of his McLaren fandom is superficial / romantic. So
he's a great driver.
he is a fantastic
And he's
driver. We're
British.
very excited to see what
British.
happens. But before we get into this upcoming 2025 F1 season, what we wanted to do in the preseason, if you will, is do a quick recap of the 2024 season, get you all caught up on all the drama, the fun stuff, the bad stuff, everything, as well as provide some ways to help you, hopefully an F1 fan or new fan, to indoctrinate your loved ones into the sport as well. Some key vocab terms, some hot goss to share, some things to listen about. Yes, listen for when we're watching Mr. Brundle make his way through the grid, interviewing whoever he
Legend.
thinks he's interviewing. We love it. Alrighty, so I'm going to kick us off with just a couple of items for early 2024 season. We've got some team movement and controversies. We've got some drama, and we've got some funnies and some memes to keep an eye out for to keep you in the know. So early last season, we saw a couple of unexpected driver substitutions, notably at Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, where Carlos underwent an appendectomy leading to F2 driver Oliver Bearman, who will be appearing as one of the two drivers for Haas this season, stepping into his place and actually getting some points, which was super exciting to see from a rookie. This also led to 16 days later, Carlos returned after his appendectomy and won the Australian GP,
He needed
legend.
Yeah.
be a little lighter. You know?
I know.
Like,
he's hot, he's snatched, and he doesn't have an appendix, which led to all the other teams wondering, should we have our drivers get appendicitis as well? Look out, Williams. There are no appendixes on that team between him and Albon. They both have had
For real?
appendectomies.
Do you have yours?
I do. I love it.
Do you have yours, Kelly?
Yes, fully functioning.
Do you have yours?
No.
Oh,
Okay, moving on. So,
precisely.
something that I'd love to get Jake's perspective on, just because you are a McLaren stan as you are. The papaya rules from last season was really interesting to experience as a viewer and a fan, especially as a fan of Lando, as somebody who is challenging
Max Verstappen.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. Your eyes are going to get stuck in the back of your head by the end of this.
Yeah, you can't. Can't do that.
So McLaren adjusted their internal papaya rules. For those of you who are not familiar with papaya rules, the color of Jake's shirt is not actually orange. It is papaya. It is the team color of McLaren Racing. The team rules that they implemented initially were to put and position Lando at the top of the Drivers' Championship and themselves as a team at the top of the Constructors' Cup.
For those of you that don't know anything about F1, there's 2 championships that happen at the same time during a season. So there's a constructors. So it's basically the team that builds the car. I mean, the driver, everyone's included on that team. But then there's also the world championship for the drivers. So whoever has the most points at the end for both. It doesn't have to be the same. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But yeah, I just wanted to jump in there.
Thank you. Yes, and actually it's an excellent chance for us to introduce that F1 has 10 teams on the grid, soon to be 11. Should we just name these teams really quick? Each team has 2 drivers. Let's start with, we have the winners of the Constructors' Cup, McLaren. Okay, we have Ferrari, Mercedes,
Red Bull, Alpine,
Kick Sauber, that's going to be Audi,
Haas,
Williams.
AlphaTauri, Racing Bulls.
Yeah, Visa Cash App, RB.
And
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin.
Aston
There it is. Oh, Daddy Stroll. Okay. So each of those teams have 2 drivers, 2 principal drivers, and also a reserve driver. So the papaya rules, interesting. We'll get into that, I am sure, later this season. Oh, the drama. Moving on to early season drama. Red Bull's early dominance and subsequent challenges. Max Verstappen. If you don't know who Max Verstappen is yet, he has won the last 4 in a row Drivers' Championships, as well as 3 of the last 4 Constructors' Cups for Red Bull. Now,
Almost single-handedly.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, last season, for those who watched, it was some races, and the 2023 season especially too, he was winning by like 20 to 30 seconds, which in racing is about an hour and a half.
Yeah, like I went to the USGP this year, and I think it was Charles. I think he was leading because he won. I think he was leading at the time. He had like a 7-second gap. And until you're like there and see that gap, 7 seconds is a long time.
Especially when you're only seeing the car for about 1/10 of a second.
Right. So a 20-30 second lead is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So Max Verstappen began the season with 5 wins in the first 7 races, on brand, showcasing their formidable performance. However, as the season progressed, Red Bull started to face some unexpected challenges, including some reliability issues with their car, the increased competition from rival teams such as McLaren and Ferrari, and leading to a more open and unpredictable championship battle. I personally love when the whole season is close. McLaren's resurgence, we emerged as a strong contender with Lando, and Lando winning his first Grand Prix at Miami this year, starting Jake's infatuation and lust after that boy.
Infatuation at this point.
It's love.
It's an obsession,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Sure.
It's a hyperfixation, if you will.
And the season also with McLaren was the first in a couple without Zach Brown as team principal, but still as CEO of McLaren Racing. So,
and the first time they've won, did you say this? The first time they've won the constructors in what, like 30 years?
No, I did not say that.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy. Yes.
crazy.
Well, spoilers.
Yeah.
Ferrari's internal tensions flared with Ferrari during the Spanish Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz made contact on the track. They touched tips. Yeah, okay. Led to public disagreements between the teammates, highlighting the pressures within the team, which might or might not have led to some kind of shift in Senor Leclerc's teammate later on in the season. Okay, so some funnies that happened and some iconic moments to keep out for all of you pop culture friends out there. Valtteri Bottas, who we just mentioned, he is a Finnish god. We love him. He returned to the grid with his golden mullet and trademark mustache.
Oh,
Love it for him. Ever since he left Mercedes, he is just letting his hair down, literally. Mr. Bean made an appearance at Silverstone this year. He was roaming the grid pre-race, and our lovely Martin Brundle went down to talk to him, as he does, but what he didn't know is that he'd be talking to himself. If you haven't seen this clip, we will show it now.
What would Mr. Bean reckon to all of this Formula One malarkey?
Yeah. Well, he would enjoy it very much because he's a car enthusiast, as you know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he had some magnificent cars, didn't he?
Cars, then he'd enjoy it. But anyway, it's fantastic to be here. I'm a guest of George Russell, which is, it wasn't planned for me to be here on a weekend, when he got pole, but here we are.
Rowan Atkinson name dropping. Whatever next?
I know. I'm here as a matter of fact, as a guest of George Russell. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Ah, what an incredible, incredible impression. We also had at the Singapore GP, we had a large monitor lizard that made its way onto the track and stole the hearts of millions around the world. Max Verstappen had a little oopsie when he was speaking during a press conference and let an F-bomb slip, which led to a lot of talk about the FIA and everybody running it.
Max had the best comeback in that press conference. And, they were at, long story short, he said an expletive and
he said fuck.
Yeah.
F1 UCK.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And he got into a lot of trouble and had to do like community service and all this.
Yeah, there's fines, there's community service.
But he had the support of all the other drivers as well.
But then
backing him up.
This led all the way through the season. Because then it became just
a little like subplot for the rest of the season.
He was in his, post-race interview and they were asking him questions and he was basically like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
No. And they were like, can you explain that? Or can you like go further into that? And he's like, no. He's like,
no.
Well, will you answer any more questions? He's like, I am answering. I just have something wrong with my voice.
Yes.
Iconic.
He's a sassy Dutch boy. We love him.
Yeah.
Okay, George Russell. So a lot to say about George Russell this
Oh my gosh.
Prince George of House Patronus, first of his name, lankiest of his lineage, kicked things off this season, though. He gave us a treat in the intros.
George. Thank you, George.
George,
Thank you, George.
I highly encourage everybody, the 6 of you who are listening to this, if we're lucky, to go and look up the old intros for F1. This year's was amazing. Everybody does a little pose, everybody throws a little look, and George this season, we'll post it there. He appeared everywhere. The internet took it by storm and, really did not disappoint. It was fantastic. Ended up being super, super on brand for a lot of what he would say and do the rest of the season. Kel, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right.
For, some mid-season munchies.
Gosh, you're so good. That's really set the tone for a lot of that really bled through the whole season, which like the press conference that ended up other drivers saying things and that became like a side joke the whole time. But mid-season, the first half of the season started, I would say, similarly to the past couple of years. A little bit of like, is Max just going to win everything for the rest of the season? And mid-season, we see different winners. We've got Ferrari winners. We've got Mercedes come back. Hamilton winning at Silverstone.
Icon, legend.
Last season at Mercedes, being able to, that car has been Such a not great situation for those drivers. You've heard them on the radios talking about how bad the car is, Hamilton wanting to retire the car so much, and then wins at home last season at a place where he's won so many world championships.
Sets so many records.
So many records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the mid-season, you're almost wondering, like, well, is the constructors up for grabs? Is the world championship up for grabs? And you start seeing cars show up in places that you're not expecting those cars to do well in.
Mm-hmm.
Alpine
with a little surprise win in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. Kind of exciting. It was kind of like all right.
You
Cool.
know, it's really interesting to jump on that point, Kelly. Like I said, like I knew of F1, but I wasn't a huge fan. I was very much into IndyCar, which there is a lot of crossover with. For those of you that don't know the difference, Formula One is considered to be the pinnacle of motor racing. So it's
Motorsport.
There
it is. It says on my jacket.
But the Indy 500 is like one of the most iconic races. It's one of the crown jewels in, motorsports.
Yeah.
That Monaco and Le Mans. But what's interesting is this is the first season that I came in and liked Lewis Hamilton, liked Mercedes, but didn't understand the big hype around it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't follow them in the past.
Yes.
So when you're hearing these things of, oh, this is the greatest driver, this is, it really does come down to the cars. And every year they start from scratch. Well, not scratch, but they start with a new car. And then, you get into the politics of it. Whoever has the most money, you can buy the best drivers, can buy the best engines, can produce their own if they have the,
best designers, best engineers, all of it.
This podcast really, like I was trying to describe this to one of my friends saying, they're like, well, why are you so into it? Like, it's just racing. I was like, think of it like runway. Like fashion. Most of the time you see new fashion walk down the runway, it's the top of its tier. It's the newest, the most trending, the best designs, the sleekest technology creating it. And most of the time you're not going to wear what you see on the runway.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that influence is going to trickle its way down to the consumer level. And that's really what F1 does, is they come up with new aerodynamics and engine technology and now hybrid and battery technology that does see its way down into the consumer level. So
brilliant example of trickle-down economics really working for everybody.
All right, let's move on to section 3 is sector 3.
We got too deep. It's too deep.
Oh, I'm
flush.
Yeah.
No.
I don't want to get banned before we start.
No. I'm just giving him shit.
It's such a good point, though, because I think sometimes we think about other sports that have like stock parts or like stock. I don't know.
Like IndyCar. Can you explain a little bit of the difference between F1 and IndyCar just for the layman? Because I know I, for one, have never been a huge motorsport fan. I like cars. I like to drive them and I like to just like look at them. But I'm not a mechanic and I am not a gearhead by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. So F1 is all about innovation. It's really about the constructors and the technology of the car. Every car has, the FIA puts in limits and regulations so that there's safety and, protocols, so there's fairness. But everything else, the cars don't look the same sometimes. They don't. That's why there's such a gap sometimes with winners and how these cars function. Or, one person might be really, really great at road circuits and the other car is horrible at
high-speed turns or
high chicanes or so you see,
we'll get into all of those terms and things later.
You see the difference. But to answer your question, there's 20 drivers, there's 2 per team, and in F1 you see a lot more rivalry between the 2 drivers on the same team because not only are they going for the same points for their team, but they're also battling each other. And it's a lot more political when it comes to there's only 20 spots available.
Yeah.
IndyCar, there's more spots available. The Indy 500, there's 33 drivers. It's the only start that they go 3 in a row. That's also another big difference. F1 starts from a stop, so they have the lights out. IndyCar has a pace lap, and then they have a rolling or moving start.
Okay.
So there's more drivers. They have,
I didn't know that.
like 2 options for engines. They have the same chassis. So F1 is really about the construction of the car and the skill of the driver, whereas IndyCar is really about the driver themselves and how they motivate or how they move through the season with their team. Because the cars are going to be a lot more similar. It's going to make the competition a lot closer. You're going to have a lot more winners than you got in F1.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
The other thing that came up for me when you started talking about drivers driving the same car, we really start to see the difference in, like, again, I'm a lay person. I have no idea what's happening with the driver skill per se. But when you have 2 drivers that drive the same car and one of the drivers is placing on the podium every time and one of the drivers is challenging,
Back of the pack.
like can't really get past P15 up to P10, like we're gonna
Aston
just
Martin?
say it.
DNF.
You know, like
Oh, I was thinking about someone else.
I was thinking about like Max and Checo.
That's what I was thinking
but
about.
yeah, it is crazy. They take these cars from scratch, and then 2 drivers are driving a very similar, different setups because they have their preferences, but you can really start to tell who can drive the wheels off of a car.
Yeah, and who they're designing the car around for their particular driving style. Because if you have a more aggressive driving style in corners, you're going to need different kind of specs in the car.
So that had nothing to do with mid-season, but we just went on a tangent. But let's talk about how it ended. Bring us home.
We love how it ended. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
We always love how it ends.
There's a lot of great things and sad things end of the season.
Yeah. Being newer to F1, I did feel so sad at the end, not only because what am I going to do with my weekends and who am I going to talk to?
We got
like Thursday to Sunday. Yeah.
Which, for those of you that don't know about F1, it's a full weekend. Normally they have practice on Friday, have practice on Saturday, qualifying Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. Sometimes they have a different format where they have limited practice and they do a sprint race, which is a shorter condensed race on Saturday, and a Grand Prix on Sunday. We'll get into that later in the season. But it really is like a full weekend. Like, I look forward to Fridays because I'm excited for, what's going to happen. A lot of things happened closing out the season. A lot of, loose ends were tied. Really thinking about Max and Lando. It's no doubt that I'm obviously going to be singing Lando's praises. But like you said, Kelly, there was a lot of drivers that started coming up the ranks and winning throughout the season. And one of those drivers was Lando. And he is the first person in years to really challenge Max by a narrow, or it got to a narrow margin and then it separated again. And it really was coming down to the wire. That rivalry you saw play out, especially in the end. I'm going to just read through a couple top moments of Max and Lando. So the Austrian Grand Prix.
Oh, all of Sector 3 is in regards to Lando. Is that what's going to happen?
No, it's more so about the rivalry between Max and
Sure. Okay.
Which I would say is pretty fair.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, we had Carlos leaving Ferrari,
which Daniel Ricciardo was no longer in F1 and got replaced.
Right.
Yep.
So there was a lot of like movement, but the movement we knew was coming. It just started feeling like, oh, well, this is the last of this.
Last time we may see them in this car.
And I focused on, obviously, Lando and Max's rivalry because it really did kind of...
Well, and off track, too, they're friends. It's, and so
I will talk
hype in the States.
A big game about Lando and say a lot of shit about Max, but he is a world champion multiple times for a reason, and he is very talented. So let me preface all of this with that. And also, if there was no Max or Lando, it wouldn't have been as entertaining. It wouldn't have had the season that we had.
That's what makes the sport so fun. Yeah.
But the two championship leaders in the Austrian Grand Prix collided. Do you remember this? Causing punctures for both drivers. I believe, I want to say it was like the last.
Do you like that word, Cal?
Punctures?
Punctures?
I want to say it was like the last 10 laps.
Yeah.
Something like that. 15 at least.
You can fact check us and rake us over the coals in the comments.
Norris retired his car.
Yeah.
If you remember seeing that wheel just spinning as he goes into the pit. And Verstappen went to place 5th. There was a late lunge. Norris tried to slow down, but Verstappen overtook him on the road. And Verstappen was given a 10-second penalty.
Oh, the penalties.
The penalties this season were wild, especially after Max's press conference.
And so this was kind of the first, and this is why I put this in this sector, is because this was kind of the first time we saw this bending of the rules of, oh, I got to the apex first. Oh, I pushed you off. He pushed me off.
Yeah.
Rhetoric. And it just got worse from there on out. You know,
it sure did.
It really got worse.
If you want a really great laugh, just go look up YouTube supercut of George Russell's radio from this season, especially late season, asking for people to get penalties, like the youngest child trying to get their older siblings in trouble.
Yeah, that led to not only the points getting closer, but tensions being closer. It kind of saw its, it kind of came to a point with the USGP in Austin, the last, I think, again, 5 laps or so, Lando was pushed off the road.
I don't know what FIA said.
Mexico City,
specifically,
we saw Max really double down, literally double down in 2 corners, and was given a 20-second penalty.
Yes,
for that.
Tasty.
Which I have never seen a 20-second.
Yeah, that was a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
But what we have seen before is Max drive mad. And that, regardless of if you're a Red Bull fan or not, is very, very fun to see. Because that's when some magic can happen or some true chaos.
Brazilian GP. We'll talk about that at a later date. I have some thoughts on that.
Great. That sounds good.
But that happened in Sector 3 when Max came all the way from the back in the rain and won.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Half the grid, but whatever. Anyway, closing this section out, Norris had a victory in Abu Dhabi, which secured McLaren's first constructors title since 1998. So yeah, it's not even this century.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
The 1900s, the kids say.
Not since the 1900s has McLaren Motor Racing won the Constructors' Cup.
Exactly.
But still didn't win the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, well, and there was that. Yeah. So. But Max did win, which he won in Vegas, which if you want some comedy, go watch this. That was rolled out. They all get into the car and he's just sitting there by himself.
George Russell won that race.
Oh my God,
so chuffed. And then
the 3 of them crammed in the back closer than we are.
These beautiful Rolls Royce.
Oh my gosh. What a joke.
That was
amazing.
Absurd.
So
yeah.
A long story short, the end of the season was great. There was a lot of movement that we saw with teams and drivers that we'll continue to see in 2025. And then we saw a new, potential, not only just for McLaren, but for Ferrari. Ferrari was really close to McLaren as well for the constructors. So this next year, I think, is going to be a really big year to watch, especially with all the rookies and the cars that we have from last year.
Yeah, I'm also particularly excited for the next 2 to 3 years watching Williams because they used to be a powerhouse. They've always been a mainstay. And what James Bowles, their team principal, has done in signing Carlos Sainz and bringing a talent of that caliber instead of a rookie into that team and now having 2 veteran drivers between him and Alex Albon is really exciting. And hearing Sainz, say outright, I'm not going there to retire or to just race a couple times, never hit the podium again. I'm going there to help revive the team to its greatness. And I'm actually really, really excited. Who doesn't love an underdog story?
I think that, we can acknowledge that I think Lando Norris is hot, but
we have several times and we do daily in our chat.
I will tell you. I will stand by. I will stand by this.
Yeah.
I will stand by this. I will say this though: if Lando or Oscar were to leave McLaren tomorrow, I'd be hurt and like sad, but I would still root for McLaren.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
So you're brand loyal.
I would be.
You would.
If Lando went to Red Bull, we would have to. I would not be well for a minute, but we'd get over it. But yes, McLaren is. I'm very brand loyal to that. But they're not.
Love it.
They're not my only ones that I like.
Yeah.
So
it is really hard to choose. And then again, we're not claiming to be like the super fans of super fans or the experts of anything. We love the sport as a whole. Many reasons. The drama during the races, the drama interpersonally, the business side of things is really exciting. The numbers is really fun. I don't know if it's
the political side of it too is like
it's wild between the FIA as a governing body that is relatively new compared to the age of the sport,
which you can tell.
Yes, you could, and
they're very
just
consistent
because they got a lot of money. But I think it's a lot of fun, and there's also like it's been fun to see because my main sport is soccer. I love Premier League soccer, which is not really prevalent here in the state. Like football, football,
No.
Yes.
Not
Football. Yes.
Food.
Yes.
Food.
Football. Thank you. So it's fun to see a sport that I like gaining traction here in the States, literally with the tires and traction. Anyway, no more dad jokes. We kind of went through
dad jokes.
I know. I'm trying so hard to ignore you guys.
I know. This kid over here trying to you got to bring we're back here.
Thank you back. Okay, so Jake briefly went through the structure of an F1 weekend. Jake, can you take us through that one more time and why you think it's unlike any other sport?
Thursday, you normally have press day.
Love that day. Media day.
We have media day. It's where, everyone's getting into the paddock and they're, have Lewis is walking in and his
first of 12 looks for the weekend.
Yeah.
What a god.
Love that.
Amazing fashion.
And what is the paddock? Can you tell everybody at home?
So that's kind of like for us theater folk is like backstage.
Yeah.
What was your joke, Tim, about?
It's this is what happens when two musical theater majors and a D1 athlete get together to talk about F1.
Yeah. So
like, a theater reference.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
basically like the village where the garage. I mean, the garages are next conjoined to pit lane and
yes,
where all the hospitality suites are. Where
all team offices, all of that kind of stuff. They
headquarters.
pack them up, they put them in giant shipping containers and fly them around the world just like Taylor Swift does with her show.
Yeah. So that all
Crazy.
happens on Thursday. People reflect on the race that previously happened or the season or whatever happened prior to this next weekend. And then practice happens. There's normally 3 practice sessions. The first one being on Friday, first and second being on Friday, and then the third one being on Saturday, and then qualifying later that afternoon. And then whoever qualifies first, who gets the fastest time around the track or the circuit, is pole position. They start
P1.
front of the grid. And that race normally happens on Sunday. Sometimes, like I said, there is a sprint weekend where things get modified. There's only one practice session and then a qualifying and then a sprint race, which is like 30 some laps.
I don't know. I think it's
20 some.
Yeah.
It's like a very, very
Listen, this is not your fully technical to the T.
I don't
It's just
usually
more-
watch the sprint races.
Oh,
Yeah.
why?
they're
I
fun.
don't know.
They
I
have the
usually have
potential
Sundays.
to be
Saturdays
really
I've got
fun.
time. Yeah.
But
I watch the highlights. But
Yeah.
I always watch the races.
But then there's always a Grand Prix. And that differs from other sports because, it really comes down to who's qualifying the fastest, who's back, who's showing the lead. If you crash a car, like in qualifying,
There's 3 rounds of qualifying, right? And in each of those rounds, you can get eliminated.
right?
And obviously you don't want to get eliminated because you want to be closer to P1 than to P20.
right.
Or even starting from the pit lanes sometimes. So
And like we talked about with this specific type of racing, if you have P1 and you have the fastest car, i.e. Max Verstappen in the past, or McLaren,
Yep.
which we won't talk about Lando starts, but
yep.
it's really hard to come all the way from the back.
Totally.
Okay.
Great.
So our producer is showing us behind the camera that we only have a couple minutes left. Kelly has a fun little vocab game for us.
A vocab game.
We'll do this every episode or every handful of episodes so that we can teach you at home some of the terms that are constantly heard on TV or frequently heard on TV during the races, and maybe help us refresh our memory. So she's going to give us a word. I'm going to say what it isn't, and then Jake is going to tell us what it is.
Okay.
Oh,
great. I love
oh
this.
my gosh. Okay,
I love
well,
this
And
for
I don't
us.
know what she's going to say yet, so this could go
love this
really
for us.
well. Or
well, first of all,
We
let's
have to
hold some space.
for this game.
The first word we're going to talk about, it gets thrown out in certain parts of the races, and the word is undercut.
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 Undercut. Okay, undercut, a noun. The most popular haircut for men with long hair here in Austin, Texas.
Right.
I was
So
going to say that too.
Hmm.
I think you
I'm going to,
should take this one.
as a real answer or
Yeah,
a fake answer?
a real one.
Okay, well, hold space for me now, because an undercut has to do with pit stops. It's a pit strategy where there's a certain amount of gap in between, and these teams are so technical that they know how long their pit stop takes, with also going through the pit at a slower speed and then exiting. And there's something around, if you go first, or if someone goes first, then another, it's kind of stacked,
Keep
right?
going.
The second driver comes in and then ends up getting ahead of the first person who did a pit stop. That driver got undercut.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
This is like the perfect time to say this is why we started this podcast. We want to be experts. I want to learn, but
Sure.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything or I'm an expert in this. This is really, I think, where we want to learn with everyone too.
Yeah.
So if you're new to F1, or if you're, you watch Drive to Survive and you're just getting into this, that's kind of where we are too. I mean, we have some experience and knowledge from it, but the more you learn about it, the more
fun it is, the more knowledge you have.
This is AI's description of what an undercut is. In Formula One, an undercut is a race strategy where a driver pits before their competitor to gain an advantage using fresh tires. So the undercut is a common tactic that involves a driver pitting earlier than their competitor to gain an advantage by using fresh tires. The driver who pits first will lose time in the pits, but will be able to complete a faster outlap on the fresh tires. The driver who stayed out will complete a slower in-lap before eventually pitting. If the undercut is timed perfectly, the driver who pitted first will be able to overtake the driver who stayed out.
Yes, there it is.
I really prefer the haircut as a definition,
I do too.
to be honest.
Yeah. All right, what's the next one? What else you got for us, Cal?
We talk about certain compounds of things when we're talking F1, and one of them is inters.
Inter.
So what's an inter?
Inter? I hardly know her.
I know, right?
Hey, okay.
I feel like I set you up for that.
You did. She did.
Just
I didn't.
a second.
Again, I didn't know what was happening. To my wife, I'm
Jake?
sorry I made that joke. Okay.
So the compounds is the when you hear compound, it's referring to the compound of the rubber of the tire.
Yes.
So you normally have a soft, a medium, and a hard compound. The soft is going to be the quickest, but it's also going to be the easiest to degrade on the track.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to run as many laps on that as the medium or the hard. Obviously, they're very self-explanatory. The medium is a medium blend, and the hard is a harder blend. The medium is going to be kind of like that go-to in-between hybrid, whereas the hard is going to be used for long stints, but it's going to be a lot slow. It takes a lot longer to.
We'll talk about tire strategy as we go through this season together.
But then you have your wets and your inters, which are going to be. I think this Lego has inters on it.
Those?
Right?
The
Those
first three
look
types
neat.
of compounds, too, are going to be
Honestly.
slicks, what people refer to as slicks. There is no tread on it. It's because it will grab the track a lot faster. The inters look more like the tires on your car or your bicycle because of the tread they have. It allows water to pass through and while maintaining traction on the track.
Love it.
Yeah, love it. Traction on the track.
Do you have one more for us?
I think I have one more.
Okay.
And I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm just going to put yellow flag in the universe.
Ooh, this is great.
Yellow.
Yellow flag.
We should do a whole episode on flags.
We should.
Yeah.
Red
We should.
ones and why I love them.
But if I just flew a yellow flag at you, what's the yellow flag?
I'd say I'd need to slow down. I'm just a pedestrian driver, you know. I would say yellow flag is it's a slight caution.
Slight caution.
Slight caution ahead.
There's also double yellow, which
Ooh.
we can go into.
That I don't know
And
that
then
one.
there's also sectors of the racetrack that could be waved as yellow, but other sectors could be green. So if there's like a spin out, there might be a yellow flag that gets waved in sector 1. But if you're already in sector 3, you're still green. So I think that's a good episode to go.
We'll take flags away.
Yeah, I mean, Lord knows I need it. All kinds of fun things to happen.
I
It's
think
like
it comes
maritime
out when
flags.
the driver needs a banana for a little boost. No.
No, a little potassium kick.
Not like that.
I think soccer. I'm like yellow
I
flag.
didn't say
it's-
anything.
Okay. Okay, fans.
We
Okay,
walked
so
in.
coming up this season, what to expect from the three of us? We are going to go through
Lots of
meme recaps because that's the main way that the three of us communicate is all the wonderful memes. There are billions of those accounts out there. Some light race analysis. What we are not going to do is what the Red Flags podcast and those guys do so well, which is like a really in-depth look at all the races. We're going to leave that to them.
Right.
Deep dives into F1 history and some chaotic games like you just witnessed.
Yep.
We're also we'd love to hear from you on social media. So please, when you have the chance and you listen to this, follow us on Instagram at F1_derland, F1-derland, and then subscribe to us everywhere that you get your podcasts. Thank you again for bearing with us through this first episode. We're super, super excited. We've got 3 more preseason episodes coming up to get you ready and stoked for the 2025 F1 season. It's going to be crazy. We've got rookies galore, which means that there will probably be
crashes galore,
carnage, which is exciting, especially because the cars are very safe. We don't like to see anybody get hurt,
No,
especially
we don't
like
need
the
that.
Phoenix himself, Romain Grosjean. Next time we're going to be diving into the 2025 season opener, which is in Australia. No.
Australia?
Yeah. Oh, it is
Oh, yeah.
Australia this year. Yeah. It's in Australia. Blimey.
Valtteri Bottas'
We've
race.
also got the 75th anniversary of F1 is this year. This is 75th season. There's going to be a huge celebration in
It's
the
a
UK.
month from today, actually.
Not
Not
crazy.
when this is airing.
Not when
but
this is
yeah.
airing. Today is January 18th. And then breaking down some team rivalries and, of course, sharing some hilarious F1 memes. From F1-derland, I'm Tim. This is Kelly and Jake. We'll see you next time.